Kathleen, Veronica, Kenny, Lina, Ryan was many things to many people in her 100 years on this earth. Daughter, sister, wife, aunt, friend, swimmer, competitor, tour guide. And even though she was an amazing mother to 17 children, to the largest number of us gathered here today, she was simply Grandma. Grandma's laugh and sense of humor were infectious to those around her, always reminding friends and family to smile, be happy, and be confident in themselves. If there ever was a woman who was designed by God to be a grandmother, Grandma was it. Her unshakable Catholic faith and her service to her churches were of the utmost importance to her throughout her life. As she enrolled her children at St. Camillus, she also worked in the rectory. She joined Ascension Catholic Church and supported Grandpa as he became an ordained deacon in 1993. Grandma gave tours of the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception for decades. Her excellence and dedication there was summed up pretty nicely in a 2015 5-star review on TripAdvisor.com. Quote, I visited the Basilica of the National Shrine and had a wonderful tour by Kathleen Ryan. Mrs. Ryan is from Ireland, and her Irish brogue was a delight. Mrs. Ryan was unbelievably knowledgeable about each chapel and very enthusiastic about her very important volunteer position as a tour guide. If you're planning a trip to the shrine, just make sure you ask for Kathleen Ryan. Full disclosure, this review was written by the user Marion Rutherford Ford. So there's a slight chance it's biased.
Grandma led a rich and storied life, and every one of us in this room has many tales to tell. One of the most entertaining aspects of pulling these memories together was discovering there are different versions of Grandma lore. If you get a chance later on today, find another family member that you rarely see, and tell one of your favorite stories. You'll be surprised because everybody has a bit of a different take. One thing many of us remember is the amazing house on Fishina Lane. It was an absolute wonderland for us grandkids. At the bottom of the stairs, give me a second. At the bottom of the stairs leading to the basement, and we'll get back to the basement later, was an amazing collage of pictures stapled to poster board from the entire giant family. We would hurtle down the stairs, sliding on objects or just our backsides, and stopping just short of the collage that was lovingly assembled and displayed by Grandma and Grandpa. The photo memories were in a joyful mishmash in no particular order. This intro is by way of letting you know our thought process for this eulogy. A joyful mishmash of stories in no particular order. Grandma had a musical way of speaking. At the beginning of a phone call, she would always say, "What's the good word?" And she'd respond to our adventures, grand or mundane, with, "Oh, wow." For birthdays, Grandma always showed us her acting skills. She'd call us up, plug her nose, and say, this is a telegram from Western Union. And then she'd sing happy birthday animatedly. You could hear her dancing a little as she sang. And if you would say, "Hi, Grandma," she would really stick to her character, very, very method. And she would say, "This is not Grandma, this is Western Union."
When I was in my 20s, Grandma, whenever I talked to her, she'd always ask me, "Oh, Christian Sean, how's your love life?" It was usually a short conversation. So for Aunt Margie's 13th birthday, Grandma and Grandpa took her to get a new pair of Chuck Taylors from Irving Sports Store in Silver Spring. Margie was so excited to get a new pair of sneakers. Grandma said because it was her birthday, She could get purple and yellow shoelaces for the Minnesota Vikings. She knew she was absolutely crazy about the Vikings, and especially their dreamy quarterback, Fran Tarkenton. Margie had definitive plans to marry him when she got older. Grandma saw a poster of Fran Tarkenton advertising Puma shoes and asked the storekeeper if she could please have it for her daughter, who just loved Fran Tarkenton. The owner said no, he couldn't possibly sell it. But Grandma kept pleading with him that she just had to have the poster. And the owner kept saying no. Finally, he just said, "Oh, for God's sake, just take it." Grandma was over the moon and thanked him repeatedly. And Margie felt very special, and it became her favorite birthday present ever. That poster still hangs in her house 40 plus years later as a testament to both a mother's love and the beginning of a young girl's obsession.
Legend has it that Grandma used to make an apple pie and Irish bread every single day. The neighbor 2 doors down is said to have said to his wife, "Why don't you bake like Kathleen?" And apparently it caused quite a stir. One day, Grandma discovered they sold apple pies at the Grand Union, and that was a dark day for the family. Grandma never baked another apple pie in her life. Years later, her kids would ask her to make them a pie, or at least give them the recipe. Grandma would just laugh, "Oh, that was such a long time ago. I've done my time." Legend also has it that Grandma would have the girls say 3 Hail Marys for the virtue of holy purity, which they obediently did until they learned what holy purity actually meant. But then again, Grandma would say, "You can do anything you want after you're married." That always made us laugh, and we always thought, "Go Grandma."
Grandma and Grandpa's house on Fashina Lane was always filled with family and fun. Her home was very welcoming to all her children and grandchildren. The cousins would spend hours playing on the swing set, the basketball court, the pool table, the ping pong table, and various bikes and scooters, all of which she procured specifically for their use while visiting to make it warm and welcoming. Grandma and Grandpa's house was the center of family life, and she always made sure her freezer was stocked with popsicles and a huge selection and a huge container of Neapolitan ice cream. And in the pantry, she had ginger snaps and the good cereal that Mom would buy you.
When we were little, Grandma would take the kids. Grandma went into the kids' school and taught Irish step dancing. She was always dancing around in the kitchen like the Pied Piper. Years later, she taught the grandkids how to do Irish step dancing in her kitchen at Fashina Lane. Speaking of the Pied Piper, she always had kids trailing after her. She used to take all the neighborhood kids, like 20 of them, to the park, which is kind of unimaginable today. They'd go to the creek and splash around. Grandma would have the neighborhood kids in the house, in the yard, just everywhere. And she would make sandwiches to feed them by stretching tuna with egg and celery and put a smear of it into delicious sandwiches that fueled even more play. Those things made her happy, and when the kids were happy, she was happy. Grandma loved to dance. As she got older and started to slow down a bit, she still made it a point of pride of dancing at each and every one of our weddings. Like this. She would have a big circle of people around her cheering her on because Grandma was always the belle of the ball.
She and Grandpa tried to make it to every sacrament, play, and event, so they had a pretty busy social calendar given the size of our family. In the early 60s, when John F. Kennedy was president, he was promoting health and physical fitness. She had originally learned to swim in Galway Bay when she was young, but she came back to it for JFK's challenge to swim 50 miles over the summer. She met that goal and proudly earned a special certificate. She didn't start out as a great swimmer, though. In fact, she started off so slowly that a smart alecky kid came up to her while she was swimming and teased, "Hey, Mrs. Lina, can I walk with you?" That little jerk encouraged her to swim farther and faster. She swam 50 miles every summer for the longest time. and that led up to her dominance in the Senior Olympics for years. In the early 90s, Grandma's love of competition led her to compete in the Miss Senior Maryland competition, where she wowed the judges with her sparkling personality, boundless enthusiasm, and talent. She ended up winning Miss Congeniality, blowing the competition out of the water. We all know that was the most important award. Margaret Rose DeHoff remembers that when Christine and her were little, they stayed with Grandma and Grandpa for a bit. After the girls went out to watch Grandma swim, they were treated to McDonald's, and Margaret Rose enjoyed her first ever bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, which remains her favorite. She remembers going to their house when the basement had a pool and the ping pong tables, and one of the cousins did something that really hurt her feelings. She remembers going upstairs and being mopey, and Grandma knew immediately that she was feeling low and pulled her into her kitchen, gave her a hug, and a treat. Margaret also wanted us to know her mother describes Grandma as the most incredible woman I've ever known, and talks about Grandma like she's a saint. Even ex-spouses have only the most nicest things to say.
We could talk for hours about our own personal stories, and truly it was difficult to pare down. We eventually stopped at 12 minutes. But this is a woman who had a huge impact on generations of people, from her love, perseverance, and faith to the everyday and mundane things. Nobody's perfect, and I'm sure there are stories where she was hurt, human, and imperfect, but I kind of like that I don't know them. Thank you to this amazing lady who is brave, positive, and kind. Thank you for your hard work and your sacrifices. Thank you for showing us how to live with resilience and loving faith.
An excerpt from the poem, When Great Trees Fall, by Maya Angelou. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Space is filled with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same. Whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be. Be and be better. For they existed.
When her son Joe Lyman was speaking with Grandma in the days before she died, he read her all the memories that the family had shared of her as we were collecting. She loved hearing them because she deeply loved her family. He asked her what she wanted everyone to know, and she said, "I always try to make every day a good day. And tell them that I love them, and I will pray for them. Always remember, Grandma loved all of us widows